The Holy Gospel according to Luke, the 10th chapter. Just then a lawyer stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" And the lawyer answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live." But wanting to justify himself, the lawyer asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now, by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, having poured oil and wine on them. He put him then on his own animal, brought him to the inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, "Take care of him, and when I come back I will repay you whatever more you spend." Which of these 3, Jesus said, do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the lawyer replied, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go then, and do likewise." The Gospel of the Lord. A man was going from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who beat him, stripped him, and went away, leaving him for half dead. So begins one of the most famous stories in all of literature. Just 22 verses long, it has everything a good story needs. A little violence, a little ignorance, a little kindness. It's a story so familiar that people who have never even stepped foot inside of a church know it. We have laws, Good Samaritan laws we call them, that are named after this story. It's a story that is very familiar to us. It is almost a roadside cliche. The guy in the old beat-up truck who stops to help you with your flat tire after the red Beamer and the black limo whiz by. We think we know this story so well that it almost makes us feel smug. We know who are the bad guys, who are the good guys, and which person we would most like to be. We feel as comfortable with this story as the lawyer who just wanted to ask Jesus a few questions about eternal life and how to get it. He thought he knew, just like we think we know how to obtain eternal life. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. This guy is good. He knows the centerpiece of the law as well as we know this story. And like us, he should have left it right there and gone home, fired up the coals on his barbecue. But no, he asks one more question, which at first glance is really benign. Who then is my neighbor? This is a question that quickly transports us to a rather hellish place. It's a place we all know too well. A man who happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time is beaten and left for dead. It's the stuff of the morning newspaper. People avoid places where this happens, and if truth be told, the guy in the ditch should have avoided that lonely road from Jerusalem to Jericho and taken a more well-traveled highway. But he didn't, and he left himself open to total humiliation. Not only was he beaten and robbed and half dead, he was left naked by the sign of the road. It was the ultimate act of human vulnerability and humiliation. This is not a pretty sight, and the righteous are well within their rights to ignore it. They didn't have the options we had, though, so we need to cut them some slack. They couldn't get on their cell phones and call 911 and then watch from the safety of their cars until help arrived. For them, this was an all-or-nothing proposition. They were going to have to be fully involved if they were to get involved at all. And neither of them seemed to have any time for that. And there was danger, too. Thieves occasionally set out a decoy who appeared to be wounded. And then when some good-hearted soul stopped to help, the gang would jump out behind the rocks and rob him. This is a dangerous road. And clearly there are bandits operating close by, so if they are not required to stop, they are going to keep moving. The law does not require them to stop, just like it doesn't require us to stop. But there is always a higher law at work, one that calls us to do more than we often are asked to do. This is what happens with the Good Samaritan. He is the one who goes beyond the letter of the law, but he is also one who was despised by Jesus' original listeners. Samaritans were seen as half-breeds who defiled their race and corrupted their religion and politics. That a Samaritan would stop and help anyone would be unthinkable. Now, Jesus never tells us the race or nationality of the man in the ditch. We just assume it was a Jewish guy. And if it was, this story becomes not only radical, but scandalous. The two groups hated each other. This is like a gay person helping the Reverend Fred Phelps. And that is the key to understanding the story.